o'clock. Call this meeting to order. If you would read the roll and, who?
Diane Parker,
Okay, yes, thank you. Yes, here.
Jesse Mauer,
Here.
Sharon Rowley,
Here.
Christopher Williams,
Here.
TJ Kathy here, Bradley Baldwin,
Here.
Veronica Cordova,
Here.
Gary Knuckles,
Here.
Donnie Montiel here, Antoinette Brzezowski,
Here.
Javier Sanchez,
I'm here for.
Oh, okay. Very good.
and we don't have.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, approval of minutes from July 24th, 2025. Those should have all those in your packets or online. If you've had time to look them over, what is your pleasure at this time?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second motion.
Motion has been made by Mr. Mauer. Who seconded that? That's
Aye.
okay. Mr. Malden, thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Okay, very good. One abstention and the minutes have been approved. Moving on to item number 4, report updates from public safety departments. Item number A, emergency management, Miss Antoinette.
Want us to run a mic back there to you?
I have a mic, I'll just
Okay.
kind of speak up, and there is a mic attached to the computer here, so it should be on the for me. So, this previous quarter for the, I just want to say that we are still working with ENMU, with the ICS courses. I believe that Billy Bagwell is still doing those, and he's doing an exceptional job. I believe he has big plans for next year to get those rolling out as well, so we can so they can get a solid grounding on getting those classes locally here. Also, I've requested that we could possibly get a elected officials course, which he did do last year, but we'll try to get one early in the year for our new elected officials to help with them in understanding their roles in the ICS and emergency processes. The Elk Hazard Mitigation Project that has been sent to FEMA. It was sent to FEMA actually during the last time. And but unfortunately during the government shutdown, FEMA wasn't able to review it like they should, so this may be a delayed project. But they are aware that it is nearing the end, and the state is also aware that the grant part is also aware that it may be delayed, and they're working on getting that taken care of, or at least accepted. Public education, as you guys noticed, I did leave a packet. Last time we spoke, there was a little concern about trying to get some public education out. This packet Johnny and I worked on, if you do the back of it, it's also Eastern from Chief Molden information back there. This packet we have been given, we gave out to one of the fair. I couldn't tell you exactly which fair project was. It was either the fair or the Heritage Days. One of those fairs we were able to hand out some of those as well. And then both Johnny and I were able to do direct public interaction through Emerge and Head Start, talking directly to people, trying to get them educated on how to do some preparations. So those are for you. You guys can keep them, but these are the exact ones we were handing out, trying to train as well on people. To help people learn that. Last Friday on the 14th, we did do a city facility tour with the New Mexico Self-Insurance Fund. This wasn't an evaluation per se, but it was more of a tour of the safety opportunities in the city that we can do to create a better, safer environment for our employees. I did take a lot of notes. They are still being processed. I sent out the initial notes to the department heads that were directly impacted by those, and I'll be working with them trying to just work on those, create a safer environment for everybody. This is just a roundup of 2025, so this will be our last meeting for this year. This is just some of the events that happened. Of course, we know the tornado, we had some grass fires, and then the motor vehicle accident. Luckily, no injuries on these ones actually, even though it looked like there may have been. So it's a very safe-ish year, surprisingly, for those. Insurance updates, we'll be going through the tort claims. This year so far, of course, we still have another month left, but 19 private tort claims against the city. These claims tend to be for the year, they're more vehicle damage through potholes, some minor motor vehicle accidents, and some damage through cinder block alleyway fences, which is from the dumpsters being picked up and hitting the fences. I have been working with the superintendent for the solid waste to address some of these concerns. Some more unusual ones, we've had a home damage from a defective charger was removed. And an odd one, which was a destroyed trailer, which was mistaken for trash, smaller trailer. So that's just one of the unusual ones. 5 of these claims of the 19 have been denied from the insurance carrier, saying these were just not valid claims. So yes, we had 19, but only 14 of those were actually processed. The other ones were kicked out. These are some of the claims that we've had this year. Mostly, like these were mostly the window damage from the meters that were thrown up. We had 3 in 2 months for that. City claims, these are claims that the city property damage, and we usually claim these through our insurance or through private insurances. We had 9 for the whole year, as opposed to 11 from last year. Most of these damages were weather damage, such as hail damage, and some motor vehicle accidents as well. 3 of these claims, 3 of the 9 were actually done through private insurances. These were actually caused by a private insured driver, not by city employees. And these were recovered for mostly full reimbursement. We had a few that were slightly less than full reimbursement, but for Geico and Progressive Insurances, they worked with us well to get those done correctly. These are some of the claims that we've had for the year. Damage at the fire department with their pole, with the front sign. And you can see the hail damage on one of the vehicles, and a private insured vehicle driving into one of our manholes that was reimbursed for 100% on that one. Workers' comp, 17 workers' comp claims for the year so far. Of course, we still have December to go, and as opposed to 20 from last year. Once again, the majority of these claims are going to be 8 of these claims are going to be a preventative measure, such as body fluids, but with full PPE gear being used. So we didn't think that there was any exposure, but it was a preventative measure to get them tested to make certain that they were okay. The majority of these injuries are going to be minor lacerations through twisting of hands and wrists and arms. So that's going to be more of a situational awareness, which is something that we'll be working on in the upcoming year to try to train on those and how to take care of those or prevent them as much as we can. Also, there might be some concern that doing preventative workers' comp might increase our insurance claims. It will not. We are actually based on a tier system, and Walmart, or the city is well within the lowest tier of that insurance. So using our workers' comp to do preventative measure is not going to increase our insurance. Next quarter, we'll be working on I'll be working with the point in time count called the pit count. It usually happens around the end of January or February. This is going to be a count for the homeless population in the city and the county. It's actually a nationwide count, but I'll be working with our local volunteers to try to get an accurate count on our homeless population. This actually helps with funding for local organizations on how to support local unhoused people. And hopefully we'll get a good count. We didn't get a great count last year. We were having problems finding some of the individuals, but the people we did speak to were actually really willing to talk to us, and that was actually pretty fun, actually. Once again, warming stations, we were working with the Legacy Church to get those set up. All hazard project closeout, hopefully that will be done at the first quarter of the year, all depending on where it goes in FEMA. And the safety tour response, there's actually going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be a follow-up on that. It's not going to just be a minor quick fix. It's going to be trying to create programs that will be long lasting in the city to make certain, to try to encourage a better, safer work environment through either better housekeeping, training programs, has Tom training updates and emergency action. That's really all I have for this. Any questions?
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments with Miss Antoinette? No? Okay, thank you so much. Great report. Good information. Okay, moving on to item number B, fire presentation by Chief Kathy.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Miss Antoinette pulls that up. He goes to the next slide. As always, our mission is to be prepared, ready to serve, to provide the highest quality service to our community. With that, when we consider the NFPA or the National Fire Protection Association recommendations in 1710, if you go to the next slide, please, ma'am. It recommends that we respond 17 personnel to a residential structure fire to maintain our personnel safety, to safely and effectively mitigate that type of call. Within that, they also recommend you respond 4 personnel on a fire engine. And I can honestly say in my career, that doesn't happen very often in my 20 years, just due to our staffing limitations. So that's the personnel safety side of NFPA 1710. But when we go to the next slide, we look at the community side. What makes the community safer? And that's really hinges on our response time. How fast can we go from the time we're alerted to on scene to help people? Whether it's us or law enforcement, anyone in public safety, minimizing that response time is key. So it recommends a 7.8 minute response time for a fire and 7.4 for an EMS call. When you take into consideration our response times for 2024, it was 11.3 minutes on a fire and an average of 9.5 on an EMS call, which is well above the average. So far this year, we haven't seen a huge increase in the number of calls, but what we have seen is an increase in the frequency of those calls, to where we have more calls coming in back to back to back.
I understand. I don't, you do that not like it's saucy?
I'll just continue on. With that being said, our average response time this year is right at 13.8 minutes, nearly double the recommended response time, just due to the staffing and not having people able to respond to that 3rd, 4th, 5th call sometimes. As we move on to the next slide, we have a perfect example, fortunately and unfortunately, of how staffing affects our response time. In September, in just under an hour, we had five calls for service. We had the minimum of 7 people on duty. With that time frame, those 5 calls, the average response time was 11.8 minutes, well above the recommended response time. And now keep in mind that that's an average. So if our first call was a 3-minute response time, how high does that other call have to be to make that 11-minute average? With that, in October, we had 5 calls for service in less than an hour. We had extra personnel that just happened to be at the station working out. People got back from class. All the people considered, we had 10 people there ready to respond. Average response time was 7.2 minutes under the recommended standard, which gives us that supporting data to show that every additional on-shift person that can respond decreases response time or improves response time by 10 to 15%. Anywhere from 1 minute and 11 seconds to 1 minute and 46 seconds, which is vital. Now, with that, I've developed a staffing plan, as we go to the next slide, that would get us to where we can effectively house 12 people between station 1 and station 2. That gives us a 10-person minimum, and we have to do what's called flex staffing, to where you have personnel that aren't just assigned on the ambulance or aren't just assigned on the fire truck. It depends on which tone goes off, which is needed. So we have to do what's called flex staffing, but it would allow a minimum of 7 people at station 1 and a minimum of 3 at station 2. Okay, with that, we've got to go from where we're at to get there. I could generate 15 positions a shift today, but it doesn't matter if I can't fill them. So with that, go to the next slide. We'll talk about what it takes to fill those positions. The city's already started a salary study, but I think we need to be very focused on the accuracy of that study to ensure that we're prioritizing positions that provide both fire and EMS. We have departments in our state that just provide fire. You have some that have positions that provide fire, and then a different position that provides EMS. So we need to be very intentional with what we're comparing to ensure the accuracy. We also need to take into consideration the differences between a county fire department that's funded by a county versus a municipal. A county can put in a public safety tax to help pay and buy equipment. The city doesn't have that taxing power. So there's a difference in funding, even though the position may be the same. You can't compare the city of Portales to the county of Eddie. If that makes sense. Okay, with that, we also have to consider population, run volume, and geographical response area. But with those last three, I would say those play into more of the staffing numbers than pay. The next part of phase one. Well, we can look at the next slide. So I did a study that showed 21 departments in New Mexico hiring at that time. Of those departments, these are the ones that have the single position that provides both fire and EMS. So Clayton, Grants, Los Lunas, Jal, Estancia, Lovington, Rio Rancho, Artesia, and us. With that, as far as departments with similar population and call volume, you have Artesia and Lovington that are about the same size, about the same call volume, and so on. So let's go on to the next slide, Antoinette. So I feel that we need to get pay to a hourly wage that, one, allows our personnel to have a living wage, and two, helps us to retain current staff. Because if we can retain the high quality staff we have now, that's less positions we have to fill. And then that will also reduce turnover, recruitment, and training costs. And it will help us be competitive in the regional market. And then it'll show a commitment to the community and to public safety by our city. So the second part, or phase two rather, the next slide. We really need to promote an additional lieutenant position to each shift so that you have a lieutenant, a first lieutenant at each station. Then the second lieutenant can backfill if the battalion chief's off or lieutenant's off to ensure that officer coverage. Then starting in FY 27, my recommendation would be to add 3 positions, 1 per shift. And then as we go to the next slides, do that for the next 3 years so that we can go from 9 a shift to that 12 a shift in a staged, equitable manner so that we're not trying to train 9 people so that it doesn't hit the city budget in an unrespectful way, so that we can plan for this and make this a recurring thing so that we can continue forward. Okay, go to the next slide, Antoinette. So we carry out through FY 29, and that would get us to where we have the most people that we can effectively staff at our 2, what I would consider staff man stations that have living quarters. So let's move on to the next slide. So the metrics that would confirm success would be 12 per shift, minimum staffing met 95% of the time, reduction in overtime costs by at least 25%, and then 25% or higher employee retention. And then, of course, the one that's most important to me, and I think our community, making sure that our response times are meeting the standard and fit the need of our community. So if we go on to the next slide, there's a few things that I'm really looking for your input on. So some of you may have heard of retired Chief Frank Viscuso, but he did a talk at one of our conferences. And these are the 6 things that he says why people choose a job. Money, security, time, belonging to a team, making a difference, and recognition. So money is your financial compensation. It's a key motivator. I would venture to say that if you don't make enough money at a job, it doesn't matter how good the rest of things are if you can't pay your bills. Security, retirement, benefits, insurance, those are all good things. Time, a schedule that fits, that works for your family, that's good. And then in public safety, these last 3 really play into law enforcement, firemen, and EMS is belonging to a team, making a difference. You know, recognizing the needs in your community and being recognized for the solutions that you bring. So can we agree that these are all 6 important things that motivate people?
Yes.
So let's go to the next slide. We all trade time for money. We trade minutes, seconds, and hours for dollars and cents. So how does that play for us in public safety? When you look at a year, we'll go to the next slide. There's 365 days, 24 hours a day. That gives us 8,760 hours a year for us to invest, either in work, in play, in hobbies, in family. That's what we get. That's the way the math works.
There's some sleep in there.
Add some sleep, maybe. City manager's dreaming right now. So let's move on to the next slide. Let's talk about life expectancy, because this is the one that really hit me hard. The general public have a life expectancy of 78 years. Public safety has a 10 to 12 less life expectancy. All public safety. Due to the nature of the job, the stresses, the dangers. All the while, public safety is trying to save life, protect life. We're shortening our own. And that hit me very hard because with a 66-year life expectancy, that gives you a little over 578,000 hours. When you break it down like that, it's not a whole lot. So let's go on to the next slide. So when you look at a work week and a work year, the general public work 40-hour work week. It's 2,080 hours a year. Fire and EMS works 56, 2912 per year. Okay, the general public work 23.7% of their year. Fire and EMS works 33%. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Over a career, yes, public safety gets to do the 25-year retirement. Okay, that's a good thing. As we talked about earlier, the life expectancy. Over a 30-year career at 2080, the general public works 62,400 hours. Fire and EMS over a 25-year career works 72,800 hours. That's 10,400 more hours over a 5-year shorter career, all while shortening lives and trying to protect. Now, while we are working, we'll go on to the next slide. The living wage calculator put out by, I'm going to say this slow so I don't mess it up, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, breaks it down in a very basic way of the base cost of living for Roosevelt County. So we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, another slide where I want your input. Does it sound legitimate or not? For a single person, no dependents, no spouse, just a person, it says they spend a little under $340 a month in food. Is that plausible? Maybe.
Might be $11 a day for food.
Depends on how-
That's a little
It's
skinny.
$3.72 a meal.
No.
I mean, you're eating a lot wrong. Yeah, but I think, okay, it's base, plausible. Okay, housing, $680.83 a month. That's rent, renter's insurance, utilities. I think that one's a little low too. Even for a studio cracker box part. Okay, transportation, I think gives us a little wiggle room, $827 and change. I think you can get a cheaper car and cheaper insurance, but that also oil changes, fuel, everything. But I do think you can get a little wiggle room there. Okay, civic, which is your hobbies, pets, you know, the things that you just like to enjoy to do. It's a little under $300. So that one, is that 100% necessity? No, but is it beneficial to decompress from a stressful career?
Yes.
Yes. Internet mobile, even with our first responders discount, I think that's pretty accurate. $150 a month for internet at your place and a cell phone. That's pretty close. Okay, now your other, that's your clothes, your furniture, cleaning supplies, stuff for your house, just under $400. So are all these pretty accurate based on what y'all see in your day-to-day lives? I mean, granted, this is a single person with no dependents.
Mm,
Okay. So with that, you have to have a buying power, a net income, just under $2,700 a month. Okay, now most of us get paid every 2 weeks, right? We don't get paid monthly. So let's look at what it would be for every 2 weeks. So next slide, please. There on the right side is pay period cost. Just over $1,200 net every 2 weeks for a single person with no dependents for a base income of buying power. This is net. Now let's look at someone that's in a different situation. Let's go to the next slide. Let's look at what our department is, the average. It's a husband and a wife that works, both working, and 2 dependents. That's the statistical average in our department. So for them, based on those increased costs, it would be $2,400 and $2,410.39 per paycheck. Does that seem high? Does that seem low? Does that seem realistic?
seems low to me.
Well, keep in mind that the spouse works too, and this isn't including her income. This is just the single income from our employee.
Okay.
Does that make more sense?
Mhm.
Okay, and all this is backed up from data from the USDA food plans, from the Department of Housing, Department of Bureau of Labor and Statistics. It's all figured in. So I think it's more accurate than I can be. So let's look at a few pay stubs. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, this is a uncertified firefighter that's single and has no dependents. Okay, he worked 106 regular hours, 17 and a half hours of overtime. And he fell short of meeting his $1,242 by $162.43. You'd have to work an additional 7.6 hours of overtime to make up the difference. Now, most of our new people are in class, they're working overtime. It's possible for them to make up that difference. But with that, their overtime, their regular hours, you're looking at about 130 hours in a pay period that they have to work just to meet that minimum buying power. Is that clear? Does that make some sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Now let's look at somebody that's moved up the chain a little bit, that's got their EMT basic. Okay. With this employee has a wife that works, has 2 kids at home. They have the higher cost because they have more relying on them, depending on them. This person worked 106 regular hours, 10 hours of overtime, and fell short $1,248. They would have to work 54 extra hours of overtime, so 64 total hours of overtime, just to get that base. Okay, now this is a basic. We have several levels. Let's go up a little higher. Let's go to an intermediate. So same situation, intermediate, wife works. He actually has more than 2 kids at home, but we're gonna figure on the 2 kids at home. Fell short nearly $900 after 15.25 hours of overtime. Would have to work 37.75 additional hours to get that base income. Okay, intermediate, they've got about 1,500 hours of training. And that's quite a bit, but let's look at a paramedic that's sitting at about 3,000 hours of training. Okay, same situation. Wife works, 2 kids at home. At the highest firefighter pay that we have, firefighter paramedic, this gentleman worked 12.25 hours of overtime and 106 regular hours and fell short nearly $700. Would have to work an additional 23.4 hours of overtime just to hit that base. Now, my goal has never been, never will be to make somebody rich. My goal is to provide a living wage that people can pay their bills and honestly not kill themselves on their day off to make a living at a second job or on overtime. Because our finances, just like mine, are 50% what I make, 50% how I spend it. I could pay somebody $1 million a year, but if they're spending 1.2, we can't fix that problem. But these other problems, I think we can work together to address. So with that, and before, go to the next slide, please. Before I start plugging the event, my whole point behind this is to get your support to continue working with our great finance director and our great city manager to address these issues as we move forward. And I'll stand for any question.
Wow, are there any questions or comments?
No.
That's some good information. It's kind of puts it in reality perspective, yes.
So it's not over.
My goodness.
No, that's.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to item number C, Police Department Off-Highway Vehicle Ordinance, Chief Williams.
Okay, yeah, hopefully everybody had some opportunities to look this over. Unfortunately, Miss Rudd wasn't here tonight to help me navigate through. The red in there is the changes she proposed. Essentially, what I did was initially, well, let me start off with, we've got people driving these things all over town. The state prohibits it unless we have an ordinance that allows it. So we have, the city uses one of these to go around spray weeds and things like that. The university uses them a lot. And even more than the two of us, the two entities there, we have the public who's driving these things even more. So what we need to do is decide if we're gonna have an ordinance that allows it, or if we're gonna just say no. And if we do our ordinance that allows it, we need to have the additions and everything else that fit what our community wants in there, or council, whichever way we want to look at it. But before I start with some of the additions that we might have as a committee to recommend, Ms. Rudd said we need to have either a recommendation for it to be a fine, and then whether we leave it to council to decide what that fine would be based on the where it would be, or if we want it to just be something else. I can't remember specifically what it is because that's the attorney part of it. But some of the things that we've talked about were making sure we had, do we want to set a speed limit on these things? Because remember, these off-road vehicles do not have street tires on them, which means things like stopping distance are dramatically impacted. They're not set up with airbags and such, so a collision or a crash is going to greatly impact the safety of these people. Some of the other things that the statute gives options on are, there's a sticker that you can get to put on these from the state, or you can require the state issued plate to be displayed on them. And then do we want to do, probably what would be good is the addition of just something that says they'll comply with all other motor vehicle laws within the state. And the one thing that it does say we can't do is allow the use on state highways, which in Portales is 70 all the way through. It's Avenue C, D, which is New Mexico 206 South, 3rd Street from Abilene east out of town, Main Street going north from 2nd, all the way up to the Bethel Highway and then out, and then Fur all the way out of town. So those are some of the things that we can't allow.
Have we ever had an ordinance regarding this?
No, we have
Nothing.
not.
So there's been nothing in place.
Right.
Chief, may I weigh in?
Yes, sir.
So the first decision factor really is to consider that we have a hefty UTV population. Is it UTV we call them?
UTV, OHV, I mean,
OHV.
by statute, it's OHV, but
Okay,
UTV is
so
the
we-
same
We
thing.
have a hefty population who owns and uses, and it's kind of the cultural norm to use these if you have them in and around the city of Portales. The way the state has written the rules for the state is it's illegal to use them unless the municipality places an ordinance saying it's okay to use them. So first decision factor is, do we want to be an OHV community, which there's several, and they managed to negotiate this. So we have to decide yes, no, do we want to do this? Probably, yes, maybe. And if we decide yes, what implementations are we gonna put in there that closely match other municipalities that make this as safe as they can? Chief brought up the tires, that's true. But then the tires are the option and so on. So we have to kind of negotiate through that. So I think that the first decision is, do we want to be an OHV allowable community and assist our population who owns OHVs in being legal and using them? Because right now we kind of accept it. The school has them, we have them, other people have them, they drive them to the fair and so on, and they seem to be doing a pretty good job. But by not having an ordinance, we're kind of, and accepting that they're doing it, we're kind of out of pocket. We're at risk a little bit. So we got to make that first decision, yes or no. Then after the yes or no, we need to make a document that supports the ordinance that says how we're going to get as safe as we can to support that thing. Does that kind of sum it up?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and by OHV, it doesn't necessarily mean the big, expensive, fancy dune buggy looking things. It also means go-karts, golf carts, all of those things. So it's everything we see people driving around town that's not
Well, there are some pre-existing things in the state deal though, right? Doesn't it say you have to have a mirror, a light, stuff like that? So there's some things to make it okay already.
right.
So some of those things. So if it's an OHV, like a Can-Am type of thing, it has to have like headlights, some tail lights already to meet this requirement. Isn't
Yeah,
that pretty close?
well, there's four, yes,
Okay.
there is a variety of different things that are in the statute that covers what an OHV has to have to be operated on the streets. But as our ordinance for for Portales, this is the opportunity to be unique and address the specific needs of the community. So, I mean, everybody's seeing these people drive these things around, and it's just more a matter of what do we feel as a community is going to be the best for Portales.
And the safety. I've seen, and I'm sure we've all seen, I've seen somebody driving one down by the grocery store, a golf cart. So it's not like a big heavy one. And there was like 4 kids in the front and like 5 kids in the back. No seat belts, no restraining, basically on top of each other. One was sitting there holding another one, facing the car behind him, which was me. And I'm sitting there saying, oh my goodness, if she didn't make the turn correctly and somebody didn't, or ran a stop sign, I just was thinking the whole time like, oh, great. So something like that. I saw someone else driving the big fancy ones, and she parked her vehicle, and she gets out, walks around, and she has a baby in the front seat, not restrained. I'm talking a baby. And I'm thinking facing the front. So she's not even in the back. The baby car seat's not in the back. It's facing I'm sitting in the front seat. So I'm thinking, okay, there's another, of course, no license plates, no nothing. I mean, so, obviously, but so there are so many different scenarios, and you have to be of age, of course, same thing, correct? Okay,
Anyone with a driver's license,
Pretty much.
are they required to have a seatbelt?
Not for everything. They require helmets for under 18.
Okay,
So,
but not.
but this, like I said, those are the things that we can look at if you have the recommendations, which, by the way, I really don't have. I'm staying neutral on the recommendations. I just think we need to either enact an ordinance or decide that we're not, so that we know which route we need to take. And I really appreciate Chief Malden chiming in if he has any input on this, since the university uses a lot of these, and I'm sure he's heard a lot of different pros and cons for it over there. But yeah, and that's, like I said, this is where we can make all the recommendations. I mean, we understand here and this committee is the advisory, and then council is going to make the ultimate decision when it gets to them, if it goes to them. But I mean, we could probably talk about pros, cons, what we'd like to see, what we think we need to see for weeks upon weeks. And of course, the other great part is we'd have that public opportunity for their input as well. So I think this is just a great starting point for doing this.
what's your general consensus, Chief?
We just need something that says yes or no. It's
Right.
come along.
I mean, honestly, if you can drive a motorcycle around Portales, it's no different. It just has more tires on it. No seat belts, no protective equipment other than a helmet.
Correct.
Neither apples to apples.
Right.
But my concern is the lack of protective equipment and the mechanism of injury if it were to get hit by a large truck, pickup, semi, whatever. Those people are not going to make it out of there.
Correct.
So that's my biggest concern.
Right. I do feel that them being out there is dangerous. And I think right now the biggest danger is that we don't have anything that says, well, right now we don't have anything. We should be taking enforcement action on every one of them that's operating one. But at which point in time are we going to take that action?
I guess the only advantage with a motorcycle, which I can understand what you're saying, is like 2 people.
Right.
The driver and then possibly somebody on the back.
And there's
But like, for
specific,
example, when I saw that one golf cart, I mean, this is a golf cart.
Right.
You could push it and it would not fall over.
Right.
And it had all these kids just all over the place. and it really concerns me with the state highway. I think if we were someplace, a smaller town where we didn't have the state highway accessibility, I mean, you talked for 5 minutes about all the state highways.
Right.
That we have going through our town.
Yes.
How would it be for the law enforcement to enforce that? Because it's like, well, I was just going from this area to this area and I live on the state highway. I was just driving that
Right.
short distance. I mean, is that gonna,
Yeah, and like it's addressed, so like in the rural parts where there's a dirt shoulder, they can operate it on that shoulder. In
State
town,
highway?
yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
on the shoulder. The only thing they would be able to do is cross over the state highway. They wouldn't be able to drive down it.
drive down?
Right.
So they could cross the state highway
Cross.
to get to their.
Yeah, they can go from University across, what is that, D,
Or-
you know, onto University to go into
Okay.
True Value. They
Okay.
couldn't go down, they can just cross over it. Okay.
The dilemma we're kind of in right now is, dealerships are selling these and they're selling them as usable on the street. They're registering them, owners, now not, maybe not the golf cart, but let's look at the Can-Am Kawasaki scenario, right? So they're saying, yeah, you're registered, part of your registration is in your fee. And a resident hit me up with this, that's how I know. They're like, I heard you writing an ordinance to keep me from doing it. My argument then was, no, if we're writing an ordinance, it's actually to help you, because right now you're not allowed to. But then again, in the city, we have some utility vehicles that we're using. In the school, we're using utility vehicles, we're crossing highways. We're in the middle of a slippery slope right now. If chief tries to enforce the thing as it stands right now, how do I enforce it when we're doing it or the school's doing it? That's what that argument's gonna be. Why are you citing me? They're doing it and so on. So we have to find our way in this, or we have to find our way out of it. And we have to do it in a manner that respects all concerned, including safety. And that's kind of where we are. And if we decide to do it, that's great. We can pat ourselves on the back and say, we're gonna get after this, but then we really have to get after it in a very detailed manner with some comparative analysis to municipalities who have been able to negotiate this and can show a record of relative safety based on the restrictions or allowances they put in there to do the best they can with what they have. Now, I think Chief earlier said there's 4 types of vehicles mentioned by the highway. And then step in and tell me when I'm wrong. It's perfectly fine. But some of them will have restraints. Some of those come factory with restraints. Some don't have them. And I think they're kind of addressed like that. And it's not going to be an easy task to get this to be allowable. And keep in mind, like the motorcycle scenario, you're never going to make a OHV as safe as a Toyota Tacoma, I guess, or whatever. It's going to be the owner user's risk all the way around. Their own personal liability, their passengers, and the like a motorcycle, the situation you might create being smaller between traffic and things like that. But and that's the reality of it. We're in the middle of a slippery slope. We're gonna have to figure it out one way or the other. Because we're allowing it and we're not addressing it. But if we address it, we have to manage it, and so on, but we're in the middle of it.
But it's gonna be, I think my big concern too is like, Mr. Benton, you were saying that there's dealerships already selling these. And so they're already saying, okay, yes, you can go ahead and do it and you can register and whatever you're gonna need to do. But in reality, do the people that are buying these actually know what the ordinance, well, at this point, we don't have an ordinance, but what the rules are and what they're not. And then once we say, okay, yes, you can have them, but here's the law and the rules, how you educate the public. And then when you do stop somebody because they're doing something illegal, right away, it's gonna be, wait, I did not know that. Nobody told me that I could not do this, or I couldn't have this, or I couldn't cross this road or whatever.
right.
And I mean,
Well-
it's gonna become very, very.
The law enforcement officer answer to that is it's the operator's obligation to know the laws. You know, the old adage of ignorance is not innocence.
Mhm.
I mean, just because you don't know doesn't make it right. But and that's what we really need to do is generate some of the awareness, because we don't have anybody in town as a dealer selling these. But there is in Clovis. Clovis has an ordinance that allows it. This is essentially the same as theirs, except I added definitions to ours. that they didn't. Otherwise, it's essentially the basis of what the statute says we have to address. But if you go to a dealership and you buy one of these, when you purchase it and they do the title, just like a car or truck, you get the registration plate once they do it.
And that's kind of what's starting the whole, they said I could, right?
Yeah.
But then there's some that don't, so now they have to go buy or purchase get a registration and plate and everything, right? If we go ahead and.
If you were to buy one from me, I'm not going to register it for you. I'm gonna sign the title, do the bill of sale, you're gonna take it.
If I already have one in my possession, right now, I don't have a plate, it's not registered. I would have to do that if it
Yes.
came to effect.
If you wanted to use it according to this ordinance.
Right.
But your golf court would never. The golf cart that you saw doesn't meet this ordinance. It was not, they were not,
You'd have to make it meet the ordinance.
Right.
well,
You'd have to
Yeah.
put some headlights and turn signals and stuff.
but a golf cart doesn't meet this ordinance. The golf cart was breaking the law, if I'm
Right.
understanding it. I mean, I'm not.
It's essentially, but you can add, because like, well, I went to the beach down in Texas last year and we rented the golf carts, the gas powered golf carts, and they had seat belts, they had headlights, brake lights, turn signals. And we were able to ride them up and down the beach. And just like here, you can't ride it down the highways.
In the beach.
Right.
For the beach here. Chief Malden, do you have anything to add to that?
We endorse, or I endorse the project. We, like Chief had mentioned and several others, not to drone on, we have a lot of different entities that are using those on campuses and as a resource. And so I endorse the project.
What's the insurance requirement?
That's something.
I think
I
that
was
was on
just,
there.
It is in the ordinance, yeah.
That's one of the, requirements, is it has to be.
Yes.
That's true. It's been a few weeks since I read it, but that's a great question.
Because even if you were to take one of these things and go to the mountains and take it up a trail, you're supposed to have the registration, your state sticker, all that stuff, and insurance.
And that's kind of where what you just hit on, I think that's sometimes what the registration thing gets a little bit confused. Because a lot of times when you buy an OHV, the registration is for like Bureau of Land Management land, the state parks, the trails up in Angel Fire and stuff. You can do that. You can take that and that town will have because they'll have OHV posted signs and things. And they'll have OHV zones. You're clear of that. You can take it right out of the thing and go right up there. But I think a lot of times people think this is registered, therefore it is, therefore I am, zoom, zoom, zoom. There you go. But in any case, we right now are allowing something that's not allowable because we don't have an ordinance doing it. And the New Mexico, I believe it's DOT, is the one that's the highway patrol, right, is in charge of that. Saying if you have it, they're okay, but if you don't, they're not okay.
And Game and Fish is the biggest enforcers of it
Oh, okay.
in the state. I mean, I'm sure because they're the ones who have to be familiar with which entities have the ordinances. But I don't know. I've yet to see any law enforcement agency in the area stop one in Portales.
Oh, one of your officers stopped a go-kart in front of my house about 3 days ago.
Right. Well,
oh, really?
But there were two kids driving and they stopped them. I'm not sure exactly what happened after, but the father came and they took care of the business, but they stopped.
There's a lot of different factors, and I think this is one of those things that now more than ever, I'm so proactive. Let's be proactive rather than reactive. You know, I mean, heaven forbid there's going to be an accident and it's going to be okay now. There's no ordinance. It was kind of, yes, you could, maybe you couldn't. And so this is something very, very important that we need to.
well, if there was a crash involving one today, the officers would cite them for operating it without the ordinance that allows it. So it's enough. I think it's
Think about that. If we put the ordinance in place, then it's every parent, adult, whatever, for themselves. Like everyone thought when they started allowing kids to do motorcycles at a lower age, those kind of things. Oh, it's gonna be a free for all. It's gonna be dangerous. There's gonna be motorcycles everywhere. Look around, come to our high school parking lot. I don't know of one motorcycle. In my time, I'd have one kid ever ride a motorcycle to school because the parents push that and monitor that and know that there are safety issues. And so I do think the key is putting ordinance in place and making sure that we have rules and guidance on it. And then the rest of it, the parents and the families kind of take care of, and then you can start to stop people that aren't
Right.
doing
That's
it
correct,
correctly.
because
like
right now,
off
nobody
parking.
really knows, so everybody just
Yes.
kind of goes, okay, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe not. But where if we did do the ordinance and it was very public, and now we do have an ordinance, and these are what the ordinance states, and you have to do this, this, and this, and just, kind of put it out there, then they'll start becoming
Yes.
aware of it. It's-
Madam Chair, if it would be appropriate to get the discussion under the umbrella of a motion, I would move that the Public Safety Committee endorse and recommend approval of a proposed OHV policy to City Council.
Okay. Okay, there's been a motion made to approve the
I second
ordinance, is that
that.
correct?
To endorse and
Endorse.
recommend approval of an OHV ordinance.
There have been a motion made,
There's a second.
a second, somebody
second.
seconded, okay. Motion has been made by Chief Malden and seconded by Mr. Mauer. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. So therefore it will go to the city council then for either further discussion or just,
The
Well, we would,
motion, I believe the original one, please restate it, it was for a
Yeah.
vote and approval.
I move that the Public Safety Committee endorse and recommend approval of a proposed OHV policy to City Council.
So that's what you voted on.
right,
okay,
so we would send it to council, set it for the public hearing. And
Because
then,
any ordinance has to go through the standard process
Yeah.
of 30 days publication, comment periods,
Mhm.
public get their input and so on.
and I think once this comes out and moves now to the city council and it's basically out there, there'll be people coming,
I would
yes,
anticipate.
kind of like when
Yes.
we've done it
Yeah.
in the past before,
Yeah.
there'll be people showing up for it and starting to call and so this is, I think, a great way to start that conversation and so forth, so very good.
If they're allowed on a public roadway, they should have to follow every requirement that any other vehicle has to follow.
Absolutely.
There shouldn't be any questions about what if they have this, what if they don't.
Mhm.
They're on a public roadway, they should be required to meet that requirement of any vehicle on the road. To me, that's a no-brainer.
I
That's
would
what
agree.
should go in your ordinance.
The safety aspect, I think, is absolute. One thing I will look for, so I can bring that to council, because I hadn't thought about it until we started talking about motorcycles. Motorcycles are a little different because you have to have a specific license for a motorcycle. If you are under the age of 18 to get a motorcycle license, you have to attend a motorcycle safety course. I took it when I was 14. I've had my motorcycle license since I was 14 years old. So, I mean, there are safety standards and everything else. I know if you're going to go to the lake and drive a boat, you have to go through a motor safety course. I believe that the state does offer courses for OHV. I don't know if they're in person or just online. I know I saw it on the website when I looked, but I would
But is there
definitely-
any age requirement that they would have to go to that class?
Right. And if there's
And
not,
take
that's
that
something that
training.
could be
We
built
can
into
put
the
that in
ordinance. It could be required to operate one within the city that you
I
have to
mean-
have that.
Yeah, I think it should be in there. You turn a 16-year-old loose with an ATV on Saturday night,
Oh, yeah.
you got a problem.
To 14 drive a motorcycle?
Yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely.
If they have the license.
And usually don't have a helmet on.
To think about.
So
right?
I
Absolutely.
think there should be some requirement as far as an age cutoff that they have to have some certificate of training or.
If I may,
Yes, go, please,
The-
thank you.
Interweb says the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish oversees OHV education and safety. State law requires anyone under the age of 18 operating an OHV on public lands to complete an approved safety course and carry the OHV safety permit while riding.
Oh,
Well,
good.
it's already in there.
Very good.
So,
That would be really
Yeah.
good.
So that could easily be changed to on a public roadway,
well, that's
rather
kind
than
of
just
what
public
they,
land.
it's the same difference basically in there. So.
Good. Oh. Okay, good discussion. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add to that? Okay, so then we'll go back to, now we'll go to the city council then.
Yes.
Okay.
It
Very
will
good.
based on the vote. That being said, I think this is one we should, we've got change management coming. I think all persons should be, considered when doing that. And also take a slow methodical approach to getting this going.
Very
No
good.
pun intended there, but.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 5, other business, any matter not known about or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to the meeting or the time of posting the agenda. Does anybody else have anything? Mr. Benton?
I'm set, thank you.
No, okay. Antoinette? No? Anybody else? Audience? No? Chief, anybody? Kind of went through. Mr. Montiel?
No, yeah.
Chief Malden?
No, ma'am.
Sorry. No, Mr. Mallon?
Okay.
No? Okay.
Good.
Okay, so now normally the
The next
public
meeting,
safety, we meet every quarter, so then in 3 months would be February of 2026. So that will be, obviously, we are doing a change of administration, so it will be with the new mayor, new council, and probably more than likely a new committee, because the mayor is usually the one that selects the committee, so there'll be different people on the committee. So at that time, we'll kind of go from there. But approximately 2026, I guess maybe we could just go ahead and tentatively put it on the calendar, February of 26, approximately this date.
I could email that to Chris.
Okay.
and She can give the best,
Okay.
response for that, depending on what.
So we can kind of keep it going and make sure that it keeps going, that it's on the calendar, but if it needs to be moved, obviously that will be taken care of at that time. Okay, anything else? Okay, there is nothing else. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.